Welcome to B Shifter. You've got John Vance, Nick Bernasini, Terry Garrison, and another round of Ask the Chiefs. We get a lot of mail from you guys now, or email. We have not gotten one written correspondence from anybody asking us questions, but if you want to send us something in writing, you can. 818 East Osborne, Phoenix, Arizona.
You know, Van, some people that send helmets have long letters in with them, which
really?
is very nice.
Oh, that is nice.
But that's a special group of people that would send fire helmets back and forth through the mail.
Well, and what's nice is it gets to live with the helmet, right? You're keeping the correspondence with the helmet?
Well, we keep the correspondence, yeah, but we keep that with Katie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's a file for the helmet stuff, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we've got a video out there talking about the helmets and the update. So
perfect.
There's 2 more rows of helmets from the first video. So
yes,
it's really cool how many helmets are coming out.
Well, and I'm going to wait until this video produces 2 more rows, and then we will keep adding to it. So maybe it's 2 rows per video that we get a helmet.
My grandson is with me today. He's 11 years old, and I go, I'm going to show you something really cool. And it's hard to impress him. Mm-hmm. He's seen everything. Mm-hmm. And I took around the corner, and he goes, wow, Pa, that's cool. I said, look at that, man. He goes, that is so cool.
That's a wall of mojo, baby.
Yep.
So if you can entertain an 11-year-old boy with it, you know you can entertain any firefighter.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
It's all the same.
Well, we've got anybody who we use your question, we send you a Alan Bernasini OGIC t-shirt.
Which is what I'm wearing right now.
Yeah, so it's a lovely shirt. It looks good on you. And we have them in black and white.
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
And it says you should have seen it in color.
That's it.
AVB. So, go ahead.
No, it's just, I'm going to be a smart. You know that old saying where a guy says to you, he goes, that shirt looks good on you? Well, I'm going to tell you, you make that shirt look good.
I always like the Judge Schmales. Do you get a free bowl of soup with that shirt? It looks good on you.
Yeah, meal and a prayer.
All right. This Dear Ask the Chiefs. This is a little bit of a long one, but this guy's got a dilemma. My department, like many others across the country, is dealing with rapid turnover and replacement in the firefighter positions. This is a multifaceted problem that stems from department hopping, job contentment, deficiencies in applications, and shortage in fully certified applicants. However, we are continually hiring new probies, training them just for them to leave or move on and then be replaced by a new one. This has made a difficult company officer process because I am continually onboarding and training and trying to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of the new employees. I have prided myself being a servant leader in the past and have been able to find the deficiencies needed to be addressed in the new firefighters, but now that is getting more and more difficult. Are there any suggestions from the chiefs on how to best deal with this turnover and having a competent department and not burning me out in the same process from doing the same thing over and over again? And it's exhausted in Exuma. He was writing this from vacation.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I like that. Exhausted. Nice. So, first thing, Bruno used to say it, and I believe it. In fact, when I was in Houston the last couple of days, I talked to the fire chief in College Station, and he's getting Houston firefighters leaving Houston, going to College Station. He couldn't be happier about that. He's getting qualified firefighters. But Bruno used to say it, people don't quit their job, they quit their boss. So, if he has a department, and anybody who has a department where people are leaving, first thing you ought to do is probably do a little bit of a, I don't know if an exit interview would work, or because maybe people aren't going to be honest, but at least you could ask after they're gone, why did you leave? But, you just wonder why people are leaving a department to go to another one. For instance, in the city that I just worked in over here on the west side of town, we were getting firefighters from other cities, most recently from our largest city. And people were wanting to leave that one. And this younger generation, I want to call them that, I don't know what else you call them, but they're loyal to the job of being a firefighter. They're not really tied or connected to the actual city, and we've talked about this before. But why are they leaving your city? So we'll talk about that, and then I think we probably ought to talk about his position as a company officer and what he's doing, because it sounds like what he's doing is very commendable. He's trying to do the best he can do, and he's trying to ask how he can continue to do that. So there's probably a couple things going on there, but we probably ought to maybe, if you don't mind, talk about the front end first. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that. And we just ran a piece in the B Shifter Buck Slip in the last month about exit interviews, and that got quite a bit of talk back from people, because and the suggestion is, don't get to the point where you have to do an exit interview. Do a stay interview. Check in with your employees once in a while and ask them the same questions that you would in an exit interview, but to get them to stay, so you kind of get a temperature of the organization now and then. Yeah. The other thing I'll say too is, and let's get to your point, but I'm seeing turnover in all organizations, and that's just because people have changed. I mean, it's not the old days of you're going to stay in the same job for 30 years. So that's part of what the fire service, and we should probably hit on that. So your first thing that you wanted to hit on was
why are they leaving?
Yes.
That I think that's the first piece there, right? So are they leaving? So why do people leave? We ought to probably talk about that. So people leave for money, right? People leave for better money sometimes, better opportunities. Sometimes people leave just because the apartment they're working in right now is no longer geographically correct for them, for their spouse and their circumstances. People leave sometimes just because it's a shitty department. They're tired of all the negative stuff that has taken place.
I think that's what you started with, is they leave their boss.
Yeah.
So, we worked in a place, and I had this, most of my career, where I knew the limits of where I was working, what I could do and what I couldn't do, because I had seen it with other people. And so they, you did this and this, and well, no. We don't need to talk about this, because Jimmy did 8 times worse and nothing happened. So. And you knew that because it would only rise to a certain level before an adult would get in and like modulate the whole thing and say, no, this is what we're going to do instead. So it became a very good place to work because of that reason, is it was about the work we did. And everything that we did inside was somehow had to support that. Well, that made it better, really, because it didn't become about the ego and ID of the ranking bosses who made it worse, right? So those people, see, and they existed in that fire department, and you thought, I work for this guy and he's an asshole and I don't like him, but it doesn't matter, because he can't do what he wants to do with us,
right?
Because it's not allowed in this system due to the people that are actually leading it. Well, in other fire departments, those people didn't exist that modulated things. And so it was just the ego and the will. And if you, what do they say with politics today? It's anything for my friends and for my enemies, the law. So that was kind of the way people would run the fire department, is, okay, if you're in with me, this is what you get to do. But if you're not part of the group, then this is, and what that question sounds a little bit like that. And you said it earlier, is today the working environment has changed in ways that don't necessarily connect to where we were in our lives. So I have a bunch of solutions for that aren't valid, because this is, Van said it, it's changed. People go from job to job. They quit quicker. It's just, and unemployment now is as low as it's ever been, probably since we've been alive, pretty close to it. So you can get a job, and now people are making more money. The lower wages have gone up. Right. So people have a lot more options with what they're going to do. Well, just for myself, I went to work, and because you commit to the organization, you'll put up with a certain amount of shit from work. There's things that we did during our careers or had to do that we didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Like when we promoted to a certain level, you worked a lot more than you wanted to, basically. You were there more often than you should have been or that you were compensated for. But because you got it in other ways to be validated, you went with it. Well, in those other systems, that doesn't exist. It's for the will of whoever's in charge. So I think that plays a lot of it. Like during the pandemic, you saw some businesses after that opened back up and did very well, and then others that struggled. Well, the ones that struggled because it was a shitty place to work before, and they kept the same shitty employment practices, and so the workers had other choices. No, I'm not going to work at this breakfast restaurant. I'm going to work over here at this one because they pay me better, and they don't screw with me. I have a better time at work. So fire departments are the same. There's some good fire departments to work for and some negative ones to work for.
You know, you made me think of when you were saying all that. I thought of that phrase: "The fish stinks from the head down."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's some organizations where they get a fire chief, and the fire chief is just not a nice person. And it's almost reminds me of when we talk about the hazard zone, where if the strategic level, the tactical, and the task level, if they're all not matched up with the same strategy, people are going to get hurt. And I think that's the same thing with organizations. We're going to talk about that organizational alignment with our leadership, our silverback leadership. But if it's not aligned, you have a fire chief who's an asshole, and I know one now. If you have a fire chief who's an asshole, sometimes those captains can't outperform the strategic level asshole. Or the battalion chiefs can't outperform the strategic level asshole. And what you said is if you could have a tactical level, a supervisor who's kind of an asshole, but he can be outperformed by the bosses above him. Because it's like, oh, I want Jimmy Road up for this. Well, what do you do? No, we're not going to do that. And then the organization sees that guy, what we're going to do is we're going to teach you the better way to treat people, right? And so I think it has to be lined up all the way through. And when people leave organizations, because they can leave there. Unfortunately, when you're new to an organization and you just come off probation, you don't understand the opportunities you have to go to other fire stations. So you may get a captain who's an asshole, and you may see another opportunity at another station and leave. But the longer you're in the organization, you notice that, hold it, that captain's an asshole, but we're saying asshole a lot. But that captain's not very productive. But I know the battalion chief, he's good. The assistant chief, she's good, and the fire chief cares about us. So they can kind of move someplace else and get out from under that person. But when you got the head of the fish that stinks like hell, and I know an organization right now where they're bailing out because they got a new boss, and he'll tell them, I don't care about you. And I think you said it too that one time in one of our, I care about you from the neck down.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you get those kind of bosses, you're not going to keep, and maybe, I don't know if this person who wrote this in, who sounds like he or she's trying to do a really good job at their level, are they being outperformed by the people above them? Did the people that they're managing feel like the top of the organization doesn't give a shit about them?
Here's an example. We had the South deputy, the South shift commander set the board, right? So they would put you, the deputy chief in charge, the ranking member of the shift, gave the rovers their assignment every day, right? And this is when I first got hired. So we had shift commanders. We hadn't gone away from them yet. The B shift commander had some, he had some firefighters he was screwing with, where they would go to their morning assignment, and then at lunch he'd call them, and they'd go to another station on the other side of the city. And so for whatever reason, they got crossways. Well, when you just wrote like critical factors down on a piece of paper, one of those critical factors at the top would have been race, because these guys were a different race than he was.
Oh, boy.
And so the union president called the fire chief. it got to that issue where it bubbled through the union to the union president, and he said, no, this is illegal, what's going on. He calls the fire chief and he says, hey, we got this deal where we said we're going to meet, and he says, we're going to run the fire department a certain way, and he says, this is happening right now. And he explained the situation, and he says, this ain't what we agreed to. That day, the fire chief investigated what was going on, found out it was true, and removed the shift commander, put them in another position. And they did the whole deal. The investigators were involved, but it took about 24 hours. So now that's a ranking person. I mean, they're like in the top 6 of the power brokers in the Phoenix Fire Department in those days. And he said, no, you don't get to screw with the help. That ain't the way this works. See, I watched that. Oh, everybody did. And we knew that, oh, wow, they're serious about this. So it gave you, you don't want to see somebody get upside down, but it gave you a certain amount of joy that, hey, this is really the way that we're going to interact with one another.
It legitimizes what they said was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because people watch that, right?
Well, that's really where strength comes from. Right. Not the people that beat their chest and if they do this, I'm going to do this. Oh, you're full of shit. Yeah, keep talking.
We were talking the other day. I was talking to a guy, and we were talking about the difference between leadership and control. Where some people go into leadership position just so they can control people. It's like, that's really not leadership. That's pretty simple. You can control somebody.
Yeah, there's people that go into law enforcement careers that want to do that. They should not. That's why that's a screwed up occupation. I want to enforce and control my will on you. Yeah. No. That should become a joint deal that we enter and have a safe word.
And so as long as that leader, and so we're talking about the leadership piece, I think there's other positions in the organization, leadership positions that aren't directly connected to that firefighter that also impact the way they feel about the organization. I've talked about it before with Houston where we had a logistics officer, right? So logistics officer's over here, and he's the support officer. It's in his name, support.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do anything but support the firefighters. He would screw with them at every chance.
Yeah.
And so that impacts how people feel about their job too. It's like, hey, what the hell's going on over here?
It's not about the work anymore. It's about what I want you to do. It's like you said, it's control. It's meaningless most of the time. The stuff we want to control is stupid, typically.
Yeah, we don't really, when you meet controlling people, nobody ever controls to be nice. They control to be mean. You ever notice that? Yeah. Like, I'm going to control you. I'm going to be as nice as I can. But no, it's silly. And
buying a car. Buy a Tesla car. You have to sign an NDA that if anything happens to that car, you won't talk to anybody about it. Right? So you sign your rights away to own a Tesla, basically. That's why nobody can... Yeah, I own the car. You can't say anything bad about the car, I guess. Yeah. I mean, come on. Yeah. You own a car company, buddy. Get over it. I mean,
I was at the airport the other day wearing my Bruno Be Nice t-shirt, and a guy comes up to me and he says, "You a firefighter?" And I said, "I was." Too old to be. Look at me, dude.
Yeah, come on.
I'm not one now.
Yeah.
I said, "I was one." He says, "Oh." I said, "How'd you know?" He goes, "You're wearing that Be Nice t-shirt." He goes, that's a Be Nice thing, firefighter, right? He wasn't a firefighter. He was an on-firefighter who heard that firefighters be nice.
Wow.
How about that? That's our occupation.
Yeah.
You're the Be Nice guys. I mean, what?
Who wouldn't want to be
so
that?
He didn't know who the guy on the shirt was, and all he knew was the firefighter. That's the Be Nice thing with the firefighters. Now, I went to College Station to visit my buddy the other day, and sure enough, on his, it was customer service, firefighter safety, and responsibility. Fiscal accountability is what he had. So it was pretty impressive to see that, and it was all Be Nice. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you're a fire chief or a chief officer and you're not getting on the Be Nice train, I don't know I don't know how to help you with that one.
So we hit a little bit of, what happens in a toxic environment. I think
Yeah.
people leave a department because it's a toxic environment.
Yeah, there you go.
Not fun to go to work every day. But then I think there's other sides of it too. If you're a smaller department,
Yeah.
and the big people are grabbing your folks because they pay better, or go to more fires, or there's more upward mobility, then that small fire department needs to be known for something. And maybe what you're known for is you're the training ground for you're the minor league club for the major leagues. Sometimes that's what you can do. Sometimes there's a specialty you can get into. Hey, if you want to be on an ALS engine, this is a thing. Or if you want to be in technical rescue, this is the department for it. I think the other thing is when you have friends at work, you're more attached to that work.
Right.
And if you have an environment where people are really connected with each other and they're hanging out with each other and they look forward to working with their buddies and stuff, they're going to be a lot sadder to leave. We had this firefighter get injured back on December 4th. He fell at a training exercise, had a traumatic brain injury, and was in a coma for a month. Today, we're June 2nd today, he's still in rehab. He's been in so he's still in recovery, trying to get back to at least being able to take care of himself. The day that he could start getting visitors, where it was okay for him to, 6 firefighters, and he's in rehab in California. 6 firefighters on their own dime bought plane tickets just to go visit him for 24 hours.
How cool is that?
Just to bring him some In-N-Out burgers and hang out with him because they're connected. And there are 2 guys that work with in that group that can retire at any time. And one of them I think is losing money. He's in that
Right.
point, he's over 35 years. But they stay because they love each other and they enjoy working with each other. And I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop when they leave. But when I see things like that's a positive sign in an organization. But in this guy's case, I think the turnover's happening so fast, and maybe the folks coming in are just looking at it as just a job,
Yeah.
and they're not connecting themselves to one another within the organization.
And the other thing, so it's a great. So we can move on to maybe the hiring. You probably ought to look at your interview process and whether people are going to be honest with you or not. But you might want to ask people why they want to be in your department, and you'd be surprised. They may give you this answer: I want to be here to get trained because I want to end up over there with my whatever. But when you see that, maybe you don't hire those people. Maybe you hire people with more of a sense of being connected to the organization a little bit longer. And that's part of so as you start going through your interview questions, maybe you lean towards why do you really want to be a part of our organization? And maybe you might find out that there's some people that you're passing over that might be more, I hate to use the word loyal, but loyal to that organization and stay with you longer, right? So the front end of it is really important too, how they come through the door.
We grew up in a system where there's, I don't know, about 26 fire departments that all work together within the same county. And I think even today, there's 2 training academies, basically, that train all those firefighters for those cities. Maybe 3, but back in the day, there were 2. And so it was common. There was like 3 different departments for my recruit class when we went through in 1980. And some of them, I mean, throughout the years, you'd have classes with like 60 firefighters in them from 10 different cities. So it was very dynamic, the way all these cities worked together, and we used the same operations manual. Well, what ended up happening is it was the same deal. You had all these different departments. Well, somebody would get hired on the department east of us. Well, for a period of, I don't know, 10 years at least, we hired a lot of firefighters from that fire department would come. And it was a transfer for them, basically, because they went through the same academy. So they'd have 2-3 years on, and they're coming to Phoenix. Well, it got so bad that this city started charging them for their turnouts when they left, and said, you owe us $4,500 because we trained you and we did this. And they were pissed. They said, you got to quit hiring our people. And so the fire chief for that city talked to our fire chief, and he says, "Nah, you're not going to charge anybody anything for turnouts. If you need to be reimbursed for that, you come to us." He says, "But if you keep doing that, we ain't going to train your firefighter." He says, And he says, as far as us hiring your folks, they're coming to us for a reason. You need to figure out why. I don't need to. That's your problem. And what it was is you had a nice person who was the fire chief, but they didn't reassign the shift commander when they started with people. Right? So they put up with that, and they tried to fix it and be nice about it. Well, no. That's the reason they were coming, is you had to stand up and do what you were. That was the strength that was expected of you, to be nice. You don't get to be mean to people. So I think that kind of became a magnet for a while. And then you got that whole big red thing. Like you said, Vance, it's, I want to go here because this is where they go in the most fires. They do the most this. They do the most that. Well, we still draw young, highly energized, episodic, squirrel. That's who's firefighters. That's who makes the best ones, because you need. You shouldn't have to talk somebody into running into a burning building, and that takes a special person. So,
well, and what I've heard recently is some people are leaving the department they're in because they go on too many EMS calls, and they're just burnt out on EMS calls. So, maybe at the end of the day, it's better that those people left your department, even though there's an investment in it and you lost those people. But if they're the kind of people, and I don't want to go on, if I was out there, I wouldn't want to go on 15 social service EMS type calls every day. But you got it. But you need to hire people to do, because that's the job of a firefighter nowadays. And, every once in a while you get a fire, and then the captain needs to manage that tactical fun, as we used to say.
Yeah,
But all those that one fire, and that's what some of the people say is, I'll go on 12 EMS calls if I get a chance to go on a fire. Eventually, at least I know I get the opportunity for that, because that's part of it. So people leave for a lot of different reasons.
But young people say that. Well, you just don't know what it's like. And you think, yeah, I do know what it's like. You can go on 24 calls in a shift. It's 24 calls in a shift. We were doing it in 1980. You're doing it today. It's the same exact calls.
Yeah, it is.
There were homeless people in 1980, just as many.
I was one of them.
Yeah, we all were. You lived behind Station 4 for a while. So that piece of it, and I'm with you. I did not want to go on any more of those calls. So what I did is I promoted, so I could stay in the same food chain and just go on the ones where I managed the tactical fun that we were going to have. Yeah. So that's the nice thing about a career in the fire service. You could start off down here doing dirty work, and then you could slowly promote and do other things. I mean, if you want to be an architect and build fire stations, there's a way to do that. Yep. So there are a lot of options. All the stuff we have a full-blown studio that you would find at CNN right now today. We learned how to do this in the fire department we work for, because we were doing training stuff. So we had to learn how to develop and produce training. So there are a lot of different boxes that make up that a fire department that services the community, does a full service thing. But this, one of the red warning flags I would have is when you have people in your primary positions that leave your department before they're scheduled to, is there something screwed up. When the PIO leaves to go be the PIO somewhere else, that's, if I was the mayor, why did this happen? See, and that's the other part of the problem, because the people who are actually responsible for the fire department, the authority having jurisdiction, are all elected officials that are not there for more than 4 to 8 years. Yeah. And then they go away. So we can be victimized by that, because we're this, we're almost more like the church. As you get in, that's the way we grew up in it, is you didn't travel and go to different places. I worked my whole career in the same one. You're a little different. You worked a career in one, and then you went off and ran a bunch of them. But that was all based on what you learned here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But I didn't learn the drop plan well enough to know that I had to leave.
No,
That's the part I didn't learn.
Yeah, but you made up with
Yeah,
with
it
other
worked out.
pensions. Yeah.
So for this, were you going to say something?
Well, yeah,
Oh,
you know,
my God.
I think the onboarding part is part of this thing because we have a recruit meeting before they're actually on the payroll, and we explain to them exactly what the job is. And that actually starts with the brochure and the advertisement for the job. And I said, take off all the things that have to do with going into fires and stuff, maybe one or two pictures, but we've got to show like we're caregivers, we're with the community doing pub ed and everything else. Because if you look at our brochure, our recruitment brochure, and there's 15 pictures of us fighting fire, well, that's 2% of what we do.
Right.
And it's really misleading those candidates into thinking, well, every day I'm going to go fight a fire. Look at all the action these guys get. Well, that's not. You're misrepresenting yourself if that's your recruitment brochure.
And you know, fire departments that have that level of fire activity, they don't have those recruiting
No,
brochures.
they
They
don't.
don't need them.
No, they don't.
People know, oh, I'm
Yeah.
going to go here because this is. Well, hell, for years, firefighters went on ride-alongs in Detroit for that reason. Oh, they're going to burn it tonight, baby. Well, yeah.
And the ride along, that's exactly the other thing we do. Our candidates go on a ride along and spend a shift with us before we even, take their application. Is this for you? Is this an organization that you? And most of them, it hooks them because they get to go out and see how we deliver service. And these are nice people. They deliver service very well. So I think the onboarding thing is very, very important. The other thing that you guys started bringing up with the pension is. Until you hit 10 years, they don't understand even how the pension system works.
They don't care.
They don't understand how much money they're going to get. And we were just talking about this at my place is we want to put together a chart. Firefighter A worked here for 20 years, and this is how much was in his deferred comp, and this is how much his pension was, and this is what he walked out the door with, so people can start to put that together. Because we just had a guy retire after 27 years. He's doing all right for himself. I mean, it's a life-changing amount of money that he got in a lump sum, but people don't understand that until they're in that second half of their career.
Unless their dad was a firefighter, or their
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
and they did
or a CPA.
What's this?
Yeah.
So, and the other thing too is, if you're a fire chief listening to this conversation, is that it's worth it to, if you're losing people, is to really get behind that compensation plan and explain to the elected officials, whoever they are, whether they're a fire board or whatever, what the cost is, because maybe you're not paying them enough. I don't know how many people actually leave an organization due to pay. That's something somebody knows that. I don't know what it is. But if it's a compensation issue and you're not explaining to the elected officials, this is what it costs us, but this is what it costs when we lose a firefighter that we train, because this is how much it costs to train them. Now we got to train a new one. Why don't we just increase everybody's pay and make everybody a little bit happier?
Well, in Phoenix, they just did that with the cops.
Yeah.
That became a big deal. So, and they said, you're down here and you need to be up here. So it seems like 5 to 10 years, the police, they'll boom their thing. The smartest thing I ever heard about the onboarding process of picking the right people to be firefighters is what you guys were doing, where like right before they would start the academy, you'd bring them in a week or two ahead of all the candidates that you were going to select from, and they would do that little 2-day hose lay drill thing.
So we in Glendale did a great job before I got there. I don't know if this was Chief Burdick's idea or whoever, but it was a great deal. And I hadn't seen it. And what they do, they call it a combine, but combine feels like it's more physically your physical abilities. But this is about the whole deal. It's where they bring them in, and if you're going to hire 6 or you're going to hire 10, bring in 30 or bring in 35 and spend a weekend with them, where you start on Friday. They bring in their T-shirts, you spray paint their names on the back of their white T-shirts, and you assign them to teams. And it takes an investment from the labor is a part of it, but they don't manage it. If you let their labor management, you've lost that. And the fire chief's a part of it, but he doesn't manage it, so don't let him get too deep in it either. But you get a group of people that are in the training division, and they spend the weekend with them, and these candidates do exercises together where they do team building and put up ladders. They do the job in teams, and then you see how they act. And not only what they did in Glendale was so beautiful is they watched them while they were performing, but they watched them in between. And we had a couple guys when I first got there that they said, these are two superstars. They're ex-Marines, they're big, they're buff, they look like those are the guys we want as firefighters. So on the very first day, they're doing exercises as teams. These guys get done. Actually, I think it was an individual exercise. These guys got done first, and it was like a scene out of Officer and a Gentleman. When they got done, they went over and sat by themselves and badmouthed the other guys in earshot of the training chiefs, and they were in earshot because they wanted to be. And they sat there and they didn't help anybody. We had people that were getting it done, not quite as well, and they were encouraging other people, helping them, showing them better ways to do it. They didn't hire these two guys right off the bat. It's like, no, they're not what we want. And that was, since Glendale has used that system, we haven't had to, in other departments, we all, like Nick said, we all train in the same location, in the same academy. There's one on the west side, one on the east side, and Phoenix now. And when they all train together, Glendale has not had to release any of their cadets, their recruits. And other cities have, several in one city, because they do the interview, they talk to them, they seem like nice people, they look like firefighters, and then guess what? 6 weeks later, you're having to release them.
Well, imagine if you would have hired those two knuckleheads. They would have just been knuckleheads.
Well, they got jobs in other cities.
Yeah.
Some other city hired them. They're like, hey, we got these guys. It's like, good for you.
Yeah. Let us know how that works out. It would be interesting to follow them and see how they do in their careers.
Yeah, they may already be gone. Who
They
knows?
could be, yeah. But it's...
So to help this guy too, because so what he's doing is remarkable. You know, the fact that he's taken responsibility for that whoever, because he's not the hiring guy, but he's getting them, and now he's doing the best he can with them. And there's probably some burnout with that, but man, I think he ought to, like you said, be known for something. He or she may be known as the guy that really produces great firefighters, and it's unfortunate they go other places, but you know, a college coach doesn't get to keep them very long. So keep doing what he's doing, and you know, maybe while you're training them and spending time with them, build relationships with them too, because maybe they won't leave. And I'm not saying he didn't do that, but you know, relationships, people will stay based on the relationship you remember your training chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember mine from 1977 and the way they treated us. And yeah. Luckily we had some good ones, but I've seen how other chiefs train them. So yeah, I think what he's doing is really, really important, and he ought to keep doing what he's doing. I don't know how to help him. Maybe you guys can jump in and kind of give him some advice, but
I had one more diagnosis thing.
Okay. I jumped ahead on you?
No. I mean, I agree with what you were saying, but I think what is upsetting today's workforce, and one of the reasons they jump from fire departments, and we're fortunate with our jobs, we get to go out and meet and talk to other departments. It's the fire departments that are constantly doing mandatory overtime to their employees, where they become an indentured servant, because I think it's not money. I think it's time off. People value their time now more than anything. And it used to be we fought over overtime, right? Like it used to be a competition to see who on your department. They don't care about that anymore. They want the time off. So you're getting ready to get off the shift. You're the next one to be mandatoried. You have a kid's birthday, or you got tickets to the football game or whatever, and they're like, nope, Terry, you're staying for the next 12 mandatory overtime.
That's terrible.
It's blowing the morale up at fire departments.
And I would be
right now.
angry about that too. And you know, that's another conversation you got to have with elected officials. They're leaving because we don't have enough firefighters, because we haven't planned ahead that people get some vacation time, they get sick leave time, they get personal time off, whatever it is, and we need to have enough firefighters, enough staff to backfill those positions, rather than using overtime and forcing the overtime. So you got to have that whole modeling done and paint that picture on how that's impacting these guys here.
Well, and the other part of that is, let's say that they're doing the forced march with the overtime. And let's say you're a department that works 48-hour shifts. Well, now it's a 72-hour shift. So you're occupationally taking somebody, and let's say they're very busy. So they're doing 20 calls a shift. So they do 60, 70 calls over the period of 3 shifts. Well, you're putting everybody at risk because they're basically going sleep deprived for 3 days to do the work because nobody will. So it becomes this loop that just keeps becoming more and more toxic in the thing. And see, it would seem to me the current system that we have to manage that isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
See, before it would be like you said, of overtime. We went to the union and said no. That enough people went and said this isn't fair. The same people get hooked up to this all the time. Yeah. So the union came up with a socialistic approach to overtime where it was equal among all the members for like working out in the field in 24-hour shifts and ambos. So today it would be the opposite. I'm only going to work a 56-hour work week. I'm not going to work 80 hours anymore. So union, I want you to represent that for me. Well, I don't. Maybe it's happening somewhere, but you're right. The more places we go that have forced March overtime, or the places they're leaving, they're going other spots. It's
Well, and it used to be like with Telestaff or whatever you're using, that was like a reward. You'd look, oh, hey, man, I'm next up for overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Now they look at Telestaff, it's like, I'm next on the list for mandatory overtime.
Oh,
it's
no,
it's a penalty.
The organization that I just left, we were develop a system to how do we do forced overtime. And if somebody doesn't work, I had one of my assistant chiefs at the time say, well, we got to discipline him. I said, oh, my God. Now he was so far off.
What, are you going to suspend them?
Well, that's just
suspend me.
What the hell are you
Please.
going to do? So
I
now
wanted the
you're
time
gonna,
off.
You're going to force somebody to work, and when they can't do it or don't want to do it, now you're going to discipline. It's like, no, we can't do that. There has to be another process. So we figured out a process where we place them on a separate list and do some things with them. But you can't discipline people. So, no, you're absolutely right on that. And
Yeah, you can't sustain that.
the only people that want to work overtime are people that are in their last couple of years.
Or recently divorced.
Yeah.
When the alimony payments start, they want overtime.
They better, after their divorce.
Yeah,
Not during.
yeah.
It's a different world than it was. It changes.
So our guy here, I mean,
Yeah.
he's doing a stalwart job as a company officer. He's trying to get people oriented and get them up to speed. And maybe some of our answer is this is just the new reality.
Maybe.
And if they are doing a lot of things right as a department, it's maybe just going to be is what it is. I mean, you're going to have this turnover.
Maybe
now.
there's some way that his organization or hers can compensate him and recognize the good work that he's doing. If that's what's happening, there has to be some. It sounds like he really is proud of the fact that he does that and he does a good job. And it's okay saying you do a good job when you do a good job or something. And he wants to continue to do that. Now he's starting to feel it's starting to impact him a little bit where he's not feeling so good about it because he sees what's happening. So he needs support in the system. So whoever the bosses are in that system need to recognize the good work that he's doing. And how do you support somebody? First of all, how do you recognize, hey, listen to him and say, yeah, okay, we hear you. We agree with you. Are you at a point where we need to move you away for 6 months or a year where you don't get somebody that you got to train? Because the last thing we want to do is take a really good person like this and just wear them down. Give them an opportunity not to do that, but you won't lose your spot. Just that spot is no longer a training spot. You get to, because that's the other thing. Okay, you're not going to train anybody, so we're going to move you to. Well, I lose my home? No. So you need to really help these people out and support them. So hopefully he's getting some support within his system, and I don't know.
Well, we're going to support him with an OGIC T-shirt, and hopefully, if our advice didn't help, at least he'll have a new shirt.
We didn't give him any.
No, we didn't. we kind of bitched about today's problems in the fire service.
Yeah,
we were like,
I feel
true
sometimes
firefighters.
like.
Well, what do they expect from us? They bitch coming in. We're going to bitch going out,
But
goddammit.
I feel bad for this guy. So anyway, keep doing what you're doing, and if you feel at a point where you're gonna burn out, try to ask for some relief. and then come back to it later, but build relationships with those people and be happy if they end up where they want to be. And I've always, even as a fire chief, I got the phone call, oh, so-and-so's leaving to another department. I would call them up and I'd say, congratulations, you want to go there? Yeah, my wife works on that side of town, or this is why I want to go. Good, I hope you get what you want in life and it works. Don't be mad at people because they're leaving. Look at the reason they're leaving and try to fix the reason. Are you hiring the right people? Are you keeping the right people? And are you identifying the reason they're leaving? But getting mad, and he's not, but fire chiefs should get pissed off like the one you talked about and try to penalize the people for leaving. That ain't nice.
No, you just demonstrated while everybody's leaving, basically. Yeah, it sucks to work here. Okay.
It sucks to leave here.
Yeah. I have other options. Yeah. I mean, welcome to America. It's a free country. We got options.
All right, let's do a timeless tactical truth. All right, the Four of Clubs.
Oh, that's my favorite club.
The Four of Clubs. The name of the IMS game is helping internal and external humans be safe, successful, and connected with their own empowered control. Well, that might help this guy out a little bit, actually. Your own empowered control. What does that mean?
I guess that's self-actualization. So that comes after competence. It's you become a butterfly.
Yeah, you get better at what you can control. Mm-hmm. You got to recognize what you can't control, right? All those knuckleheads above you, if you think they're that. What can I control? And I'm going to get better at what I do. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get better. If you're going to be an incident commander, be the best incident commander you can be. And the only way you can do that is through training. Yeah. Because you're not, you always talk about experience. Well, eventually you may get the experience, but training is experience, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the shortcut to it.
Yeah.
That's
well, and that's where you learn. See, that's where people learn the limits and the consequences of things there. Yeah. So that thing where we have to almost die to take a lesson away, well, you can, during the front end of our career, we had as many fatalities in training burns as regular burns because we made them just like regular fires. We made them as dangerous as we could. So you thought, well, no, this makes no sense. We're practicing dying in fires now. Is we need to recalculate this and practice being successful. Well, we say safety and everybody thinks, there we go again. And you think, we make the scene safer for the victims by eliminating the hazards. Well, that's what we do for ourselves then too. So the quicker we eliminate the hazards, well, today's fire attack, offensive fire attack, you can initiate from the outside of the building. So I can knock 3/4 of the fire down before I ever get in the building. Makes it safer for everybody. Well, you still hear these old knuckleheads, our generation. I don't believe in this. This isn't what I saw during my career. Yeah, well, Captain Salty, you get in your pants twice a day. We should probably quit listening to you. So...
Get me the divining rod.
Yeah, exactly. Get a smoothbore. Tank to pump, Frank. Tank to pump. It's just chaos and mayhem, Vance. You can't run an airline that way. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. I used to say, they'd say, the safety, blah, blah, blah. I said, if the American Fire Service ran the airlines, it wouldn't be safe to be on the ground even, because they are going to fall down somewhere. Anyway, I've gone off track again.
Empowered control.
Safety.
Four clubs. I knew that was the 4 clubs.
Yeah. 4 clubs.
Well, guys, thanks. It's been a good episode.
Woohoo!
Well, they'll be the judges.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not our.
Yeah.
If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe both on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're everywhere. Make sure you subscribe for the B-Shifter Buck Slip. You can do that in the show notes. And, of course, the Hazard Zone Conference is back October 5th and 6th in Cincinnati. You can see our silverbacks there, along with 19 other instructors. So hopefully you can get signed up, and we'll see you in person. Until next time, thanks for listening or watching B-Shifter.